For over 30 years, we have been getting stronger and faster. This year alone, we have added 4 new members, increasing our total to 30 members, contributing and exchanging news material every day. But our influence is just not limited to the region. We have been expanding our network across the globe. In the Middle East and Northern Africa, we have Sister Union, Arab States Broadcasting Union, sharing news with us daily. In Europe, we exchange news with over 60 different European broadcasters, and in America, CNN receives news materials from AVN and broadcasts them all over the world. Asian news is changing faster and having more of an impact on global affairs than ever before. Through improvements in technology, journalists are able to submit and access more news stories and receive updates faster through our newly integrated internet-based platform. The new internet platform has made it easier to contribute and access current news events, and the rise of membership participation has led to a dramatic increase of items being exchanged over the last year. With the exchange of news comes the exchange of ideas. Members can also benefit from AVN journalist workshops and attachment schemes in our bid to create partnerships, spread knowledge, and elevate standards. So, contribute your views in global affairs and join us as we document history in the making. Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Nasma Abdul Muhsin and this is AVN News. A UK-based international charity is urging the global community to refer to Myanmar's violence against the Rohingya Muslims as genocide. In a scathing new report, the charity Restless Beings has voiced deep concerns about the conditions of thousands of Rohingya who have been forced to flee their homes to neighbouring Bangladesh. Amina Taylor reports from London.
Its content often made for difficult reading. Research for the report took place across 8 separate camps between October 2017 and January of this year. Parliamentarians, rights groups and the media witnessed harrowing first-hand accounts of the violence that so far cost thousands their lives and forced hundreds of thousands to flee their homes.
তুমি দেখছো এটা এটা তুই নিজে চোখে দেখল না ওর নিজের চোখে দেখা হয়েছে ওরা আসার সময় মানে ও আব্বুকে পিছ থেকে এসে ধাক্কা দেওয়ার পরে লাঠি দেওয়া ছিল।
Outside the event, MP Paul Scully, the co-chair of the all-party parliamentary group for Burma and a trade envoy to the country, outlined the government's position on the crisis.
We can't tell Burma how to govern their country, but we don't run the country. It's not this colonial system or anything like that. But nonetheless, we have to have influence and we have to call out human rights violations when they're going in. So it's about using our influence, it's about mobilising the international community, and it's about pointing out the fact that Burma needs to act like a responsible government to make for the security and the safety of its people.
Pressure is mounting on the military junta inside Myanmar, and of course its public political face Aung San Suu Kyi is becoming increasingly more difficult to deny that its forces are responsible for a genocide being carried out against the Rohingya people in the face of mounting and undisputable evidence. For those behind the report, it's important that the world acknowledges what is truly taking place.
It cannot be described in anything other than the term genocide. Even the UN are starting to use the term genocide. The UN Human Rights Commissioner has called it a genocide in December. The UN Special Rapporteur of Burma last week called it genocide as well. It's about time that our governments, both in the UK and across the world, start using the term genocide, because that's exactly what it is, and actually make sure that some sort of justice can be had for the Rohingya people.
The report sheds light on the current state of the Rohingya, but hopes to do more.
Use this as a crutch for our government, for the Bangladeshi government, to say that there 100% is a genocide going on, that we need people in Burma, whether it's independent adjudicators, whether it's the NGO access to help the Rohingya before or after repatriation, is for us to be able to use it for accountability, because right now the story is the story. It keeps getting brushed under the carpet.
With a copy of this report being sent to every British parliamentarian, it's hoped that forthcoming trips to the region will yield more than just stern words of rebuke for the government in Myanmar before more are dispossessed and killed. Amina Taylor, Press TV, London.
Rescuers are working to ensure there are no people left trapped in ruins after a powerful earthquake and a series of aftershocks shook a Taiwanese city. A 6.4 magnitude earthquake struck the city of Hawlane on the island's east coast on Tuesday night and was followed by tremors the next day. 10 people were confirmed dead and at least 60 remained unaccounted for. VOA's Zlatica Hoke reports.
Images show extensive damage to buildings and infrastructure in the Hualien area. A 12-story building leaning heavily to one side was the focus of the rescue effort Wednesday. Engineers worked to secure it with concrete blocks and steel bars before going in to evacuate residents. The effort was hampered by aftershocks and rainy weather.
This is the most difficult part of the rescue right here at Yangcui building because it's tilting by more than 50 degrees. So all our rescuers who are entering the building, if it collapses, all of them will be killed immediately.
Hualien is a popular tourist city with about 100,000 permanent residents. Many have taken shelter in the city's sports stadium.
I came here at roughly 3 or 4 a.m. There were constant aftershocks, so I didn't dare stay at home, even though the area around my house is actually not that bad.
The residents may be used to earthquakes, but for some visitors it was a first encounter with one.
I've never actually experienced an earthquake before, but I'd heard people say that there were often earthquakes here. So at first I didn't really react, but later when lights started smashing and the floor was covered in glass, that is when I realized it was serious.
President Tsai Ing-wen visited Hualien Wednesday morning.
We are using all our resources in the rescue effort. We will not give up and will not let go of any chances to save those who can be rescued. We hope that we can rescue everyone who is trapped, but we also have to make sure that rescue workers are safe.
More than 250 people were injured, and the death toll is expected to rise as the search and rescue effort continues. The quake was felt in the capital Taipei, more than 160 kilometers away. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
The roller coaster ride continues in financial markets with sharp swings rocking major indices from Asia, Europe and North America. The volatility intensified after Monday's steep drop when the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged nearly 1,200 points. But if the sharp sell-off came as a shock to some, analysts who spoke with VOA say it is a shock many had been anticipating for some time. Mil Ariga explains.
What goes up must eventually come down. And after a year that has seen stock prices soar to record highs, a correction was long overdue.
Stocks do not go up forever. And so after about a 30% rise over the course of the last 13 months or so, what was probably the most predicted event on the face of the planet actually occurred, and that was a pullback.
Think of the pullback as a reset switch that keeps financial markets from overheating.
The stock market has gone too far too fast.
Investment manager James McBride says that reset came Friday after a solid jobs report showed U.S. wages finally starting to rise.
You know, they haven't gone up for, it seems like, forever. And that created a perception in the marketplace that inflation is right around the corner, that the Federal Reserve is going to start raising interest rates.
The concern is that a rapid rise in inflation could prompt the U.S. Central Bank to raise interest rates more aggressively. But Equity Capital Markets Chief Investment Officer Alton Ergen says don't blame the traders. He says nearly 2/3 of all stock trades are initiated by computer algorithms.
Actually, program trading and the machine trading, what we consider to be the majority of the trading in the markets. So when the sell-off started, it's our belief that that sell-off get exaggerated to the downside, and that was one of the reasons, in my view, that we had such a sharp sell-off.
On the other hand, a sharp sell-off is an opportunity for bargain hunters, which is likely why Wall Street went the other way Tuesday when the Dow closed 567 points higher following a turbulent day of trading. Strangely absent from the discussion, President Donald Trump, who's taken credit for the record run-up in stocks. But speaking to lawmakers on Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin doubled down on the White House claim.
Again, I think we'll still claim credit for the fact that it's up over 30% since the election.
But as almost any economist will tell you, the stock market is not the whole economy. Milar Sega for VOA News, Washington.
In the years after World War II, the birth rate in U.S. skyrocketed. This generation of Americans became known as baby boomers. There are a huge population segment in the U.S., and as they age, they are changing the healthcare industry. VOA's Kevin Enox reports.
For a growing number of nurse practitioners, like Dwayne Dobschutz, house calls are coming back in style.
Home is the place they want to be.
As baby boomers, the American generation born after World War II, age, they want their doctors to come to them.
They don't want to be in a nursing home. They don't even want to be in a good nursing home. They want to be where they're in control.
And no surprise, house calls are good for the patients.
And he becomes quite a helper by stopping to see me ever so often and taking some of the readings, and I don't have to go down to the hospital sometimes.
And going to the hospital is something even doctors say they want to avoid.
We worry about functional decline. There's an adage that a day in the hospital requires about a week of recovery. That's just from the hospitalization, not necessarily the illness that brought them there.
So when baby boomers do have to be admitted, hospitals are trying to make their stay less stressful. At least 100 in the U.S. have opened special geriatric wards for their older patients.
We're trying to, know them a little bit better, understand them a little better, and see exactly what they need, as opposed to just opening the door and saying, hey, you need to come into the hospital.
Dwayne Dobschutz says that since he's about the same age as his patients, that makes them feel more comfortable.
I moved from being the oldest nurse in the emergency department to a youngster comparison to the 90-year-olds. They seem to like the little bit of white hair that I have, the little that I have.
An estimated 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day, and that's just in the U.S. For writer Kevin Enox, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.
When she emerged from obscurity in the rock formations of South Dakota in the early 1990s, the world's largest Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton was only beginning a long legal and physical journey. Known as Sue, named for the paleontologist Sue Hendrickson who discovered her, she eventually arrived as the star attraction at Chicago's Field Museum in 2000. As VOA's Ken Faribault reports, nearly 20 years later, Sue is once again on the move.
From the Black Hills of South Dakota to the black mugs of the Field Museum gift shop, the world's most complete T-Rex skeleton leaves a lasting impression.
Millions of people come to Chicago every year in order to see Sue.
Field Museum project manager Hillary Hansen says Sue's popularity transcends her Chicago home.
Sue is known the world over also because we have 2 casts of Sue that travel around the world. So we take Sue to other museums as well as people coming here to take a look at Sue.
People that haven't seen her have a relationship to Sue through social media. She's a great ambassador for not only Field Museum but for natural history museums in general.
Jaap Hoogstraten is director of exhibitions at the Field Museum. He says Sue's stature wasn't fully realized under the 21-meter-high ceiling in Stanley Field Hall.
A lot of visitors come to the field to see Sue and feel that she's maybe a little smaller than expected. The buildup is too big because this is such a huge space.
We know from a lot of visitor studies that people want to see Sue and Sue's natural environment, and you can't really do that in an environment like Stanley Field Hall.
So for the first time since she was unveiled, Sue is moving to the museum's Evolving Planet exhibit.
We're able to really take the time in the space to flesh out the full story of where Sue lived, how she lived, and what her daily life may have been like.
And what she actually looked like.
We've learned a lot about the science, the biomechanics of T-Rexes from studying Sue. Her gait, her bite force, and all kinds of things. We'll be adding new research to the display in changing her pose slightly.
But first comes the hard part, taking Sue apart, bone by bone.
The way that she is mounted on this metal armature allows us to remove every bone individually. And that'll be really interesting because we haven't deinstalled significant portions of her since she was installed in the year 2000.
Sue will reach her new home, in her new pose in mid-2019, along with some new and some other familiar pieces.
We keep the skull separate from the rest of the body because it's the main thing that people want to research. So even when she's reinstalled, we'll keep the skull in a separate case for easy access.
The space Sue vacates is already spoken for. A cast of the world's largest dinosaur, the titanosaur, found in Argentina, will soon cast its gaze over the space.
It's a sauropod. It's 120 feet long. Sue is 40 feet, so 3 times as long.
But not 3 times as popular as Sue.
She's really important, and she's our most valuable specimen here at the Field Museum.
Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Chicago, Illinois.
An Egyptian startup is designing video games in which the object is not just to win, but to become aware of social issues. Faith Lapidus reports.
You've got to focus to play a video game, which makes it a great platform for raising social awareness. And that's what the Egyptian startup Castling Studios is trying to do. One of its games, called Bara'ah, or Innocence, was created to educate people about female genital mutilation. It targets young girls in villages, and in the game, the player helps a girl escape a hospital and break walls, representing society's misconceptions. The 8 company founders, who all studied game development at Cairo's Information Technology Institute, say they bring local sensibility to their work.
We are trying to offer something new because when the West develops games, even on the Middle East or the Egyptian culture, they do so from their own perspective. But when we develop the games, we make them better because we know more about the experiences we have lived through and continue to see the wrong practices happening, and we know what the right things are.
Another game created by the company, called Hire Me, Thank You, helps manual workers learn communication skills for interviews. The story revolves around what someone should be doing before leaving for work, and user response has been positive.
When people see it, they are amazed that we are creating games addressing these issues, and they are really entertained by the game itself. They say it is fun and that they are waiting to see how the game ends and solves the issue.
The developers have created more than 7 games, most still in the prototype phase. They'll eventually be released for free. I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
And that's all we have for you right now. Thank you for watching. Have a very pleasant day.
Asia Vision, Asian news through Asian eyes.